There are rumors that Tom Brady may be coming out of retirement to play football again. And he may be doing it for a former coach. Also, McCarthy may be voted out as Speaker of the House after compromising on the debt ceiling bill. And a new study come out tells us that left-wing people tend to be more psychotic than people on the right. We're going to talk about all of that and more. I'm your host, Hyde. This is Hide and Seek Media. Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, here at Hide and Seek Media, what I'm going to try to do is bring you a blue-collar, common-sense perspective on politics, culture, and sports. If you haven't subscribed yet on YouTube or Rumble, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a video or go live. If you enjoy all of this content here and you want more, click the link down below and check out my locals community. There you'll get access to all of these videos I put up on Rumble and YouTube, but you'll also get content made exclusively for locals. So head on over there and join the community. But today I wanted to jump into this story about Tom Brady and possibly coming back to the NFL. So from what I understand, when Tom retired, he ended up with a minority stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. And to my knowledge, you cannot play and be a owner of a franchise in the NFL. So with these rumors in place, if Tom were to actually come out of retirement and play, he would have to give up his minority stake in the Raiders. That being said, there's still some online betting places, sports books, that believe this is a possibility. I found this story from Sports Illustrated. It says Tom Brady favored to become starting quarterback for AFC team. Now, the funny thing here is that the AFC team that they're talking about just so happens to be the same team that he owns a minority stake in. So he would have to sell his stake in the Raiders to then become the starting quarterback of the Raiders. Let's see what this article has to say about it. At least one sportsbook believes there's a chance that Tom Brady could take over at quarterback for an AFC team next season. Over the past week, reports have begun to surface regarding the unique contract structure that is in place for Las Vegas Raiders' newly acquired starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. And so for those of you who don't know what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo, he initially agreed to terms. I think it was like 3 years, $75 million for the Raiders. Then when he got there, I believe he didn't pass his physical, so they reworked his contract to say that if he didn't pass the physical by the start of the season, that the contract was basically null and void, and they didn't have to pay him anything. And so that tends to lean in favor of the Raiders, right? Like, so there's a good chance that Jimmy Garoppolo may not even be the starter for the Raiders come the start of the season if he can't pass that physical. And I believe it's the foot injury that he had to have surgery on that is slowing this process up. Now, some would say or could say that the 49ers basically screwed the Raiders over by saying that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't need surgery on his foot. And then later come to find out that the Las Vegas Raiders doctors believe he did, and so he went and had surgery, and now he's not recovering from that surgery the way they would have hoped. And so there's a good chance that Garoppolo doesn't even start for the Raiders or even play another down in football. That's why the speculation is that Tom Brady may be the next starting quarterback for the Raiders because he owns a piece of them. So he's got ties there. Josh McDaniels is the head coach, and they were, offensive coordinator and quarterback for how many years together? They won how many Super Bowls together? Or at least attended how many Super Bowls together? So there's a deep connection there. But Tom's 46. And I don't know if he's going to come out of retirement. According to, who was it? Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee show. He doesn't believe Tom's coming out of retirement because it's more of he retired this time because he wanted to spend time with his family. It was more personal, and he's done with playing football. So why this sports book, right, believes that he is, I don't know. But right here, this guy tweets out, Bet Online has the following odds for Week 1 Raiders quarterback, if not Jimmy Garoppolo. Tom Brady, 2-1. 2-1. That's insane. Oh. I'm not giving gambling advice here, but let me just say, I may be getting on Bet Online here in a little while if those odds still remain the same. 2-1? Come on. No way. No way. Tom Brady is done. He's retired. Did you see last season? Even with the problems that the Bucs had, Tom Brady did not look like Tom Brady. At least in my opinion. If I'm wrong, please, somebody leave a comment down below. Let me know. Do you think Tom Brady could lead the Las Vegas Raiders in next season? Do you think he's capable? I mean, they have a great wide receiver in Devontae Adams, right? And Adams has now been with McDaniels for a season, so there's some familiarity with the offense. I don't know. I don't think it's likely. I really don't. But Bet Online has it 2-1. So, you take that however you want. Like I said, I'm not giving gambling advice here, but I may be going to Bet Online here in a little while. That's insane. So, speaking of insane, right, that helps me segue into the next story I wanted to talk about, because I really don't want to spend much more time on this because I really think this is ridiculous, right? And so this story that I found from timcast.com, right, it struck me as kind of interesting. Not because I believe what it says, but because it kind of proves what's been going on in this country over the last, decade or so. It says people with narcissistic psychopathic tendencies more likely to support left-wing views, new research finds. Researchers warn minority activist groups about narcissistic enemies from within that may hijack a movement for their own gain. They go on to report narcissistic people and individuals with psychopathic tendencies are more likely to align with the left-wing authoritarianism, according to a new study. Researchers also found some forms of political activism can be attractive for narcissistic psychopaths, while adding that some political activists on the left side of the political spectrum do not actually strive for social justice and the support of underprivileged groups or persons, but rather endorse or express violence for the satisfaction of their own ego-focused, sometimes even antisocial needs. Now, let's break that down right there for a second, because when I read that, I think of one thing. I think of 2020. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, 2020 was probably one of the worst years I've ever experienced in my life. Not personally, but just in general, globally, here in the United States, what we experienced was terrible. And when I read that, it brings me to 2020, because I remember a lot of cities being plagued with unnecessary violence and destruction. And this tends to prove that out, right? As they said here, some political activists on the left side of the political spectrum do not actually strive for social justice and the support of underprivileged groups or persons, but rather endorse and express violence for the satisfaction of their own ego-focused, sometimes even antisocial needs. So that's the 2020 riots right there. A majority of those people just wanted to burn buildings down and demolish windows and loot and steal and murder, and attack people. So it tends to make me believe this study, when I start to read quotes like that, and then and start to relive what I remember seeing in the news and on TV and on social media about what happened in 2020. So they go on to report, the new research published in Current Psychology aimed to determine what psychological factors drive individuals to participate in violent political activism. Now, I want to tell you that this was probably a study done to try and prove that January 6th was a violent insurrection, and probably did the exact opposite, right? So it says, authoritarianism can be found on both sides of the political spectrum. The study's authors, Ann Crispins and Alex Bertrams, said in a recent interview. They added that indicators of authoritarianism on the political left include preferences for things like the absolute endorsement of progressive moral values, top-down censorship, i.e. the preference for the use of government and institutional authority to suppress any speech that is considered offensive or intolerant, and the motivation to use force and aggression to overthrow established hierarchies. So, the first one, absolute endorsement of progressive moral values. Example, if you don't believe that a transgender woman is a woman, then you're a right winger. Let's see, what does it say? Top-down censorship, government, institutional authority to suppress any speech considered offensive or intolerant. The Twitter files proved that. That's all I have to say about that. The Twitter files proved that. And motivation to use force and aggression to overthrow established hierarchies. The riots. So, again, when I read this, I can find something to attribute what they're saying from the left. The only thing you can attribute any of that on the right would be the motivation to use force and aggression to overthrow established hierarchies, but more so in the more traditional American sense that the Constitution demands that when the government gets too big for its britches, the people put it back in place. Like that's part of how the Constitution is structured, and it's structured that way for that reason. So that's the only thing that I can see that I could attribute to the right out of those three preferences that they listed here. It goes on to say, for example, an individual in high and left wing authoritarianism might declare anyone to be old fashioned who is opposing their own progressive values, strive to suppress free speech to regulate expression of right wing beliefs in educational institutions, like i.e., no more praying in church or praying in school, and even endorse the use of violence to reach their own political goals, Crispin's and Bertram's added. The study's authors found that people who support using force to overthrow power structures and to use force against individuals who endorse conservative values are more likely to exhibit a sense of entitlement, arrogance, manipulative behavior, reactive anger, grandiose fantasies, acclaim seeking, shame, and a need for admiration. And I mean that does sound a lot like today's left, right? I mean, it's all about body positivity and uh, entitlement and participation trophies and that kind of stuff, right? Like, so I I completely can get what they're talking about here. And it goes on to say researchers also determined that left wing authoritarianism has no relationship to altruism. In particular, certain forms of activism might provide them with opportunities for positive self presentation and displays of moral superiority, to gain social status, to dominate others, and to engage in social conflicts. You know what? I forgot to bring the chat window up. I don't know if anyone's watching or if anyone's chatting right now, but I forgot I could do that. Like I said, I'm still new to this live thing, right? So, okay. So the pair also warned that minority groups should be made aware of narcissistic enemies from within their own activist movement, as these individuals could hijack the cause, thereby reducing the success of the activism in many ways. Crispin and Bertram's added, as grandiose narcissists typically desire fame, distinction, elevated social status, and high social importance, they can be assumed to strive for influential positions that involve social visibility and outreach, as well as access to financial and other resources. So, like, the grandiose narcissist, I don't know. Is it just me, or does that sound like all corporate media? Like everybody on corporate media, right? They desire fame, distinction, elevated social status, and high social importance. That sounds to me like Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity and Don Lemon, right? Cuomo, like all of these people sound that. I mean, yeah, I mean even Tucker to an extent. So I mean, it's not so like some of the and like they said, the authoritarianism in the political spectrum does fall on both sides. So you can see how these grandiose narcissists may not necessarily be just left wing, because like I said, you have people like Hannity and others, Tucker, that desired fame, distinction, elevated social status by doing what they did on TV and wanting a high social importance. So it makes sense to me, right? That all makes sense to me. And when I read this article for the first time, I was like, wow, like these guys nailed it. They nailed everything that we've seen from the left wing for the last 10, 12 years, probably. I would say since 2008, maybe even before that. We had that it all started with that political correctness, right? You couldn't say this, you had to say it this way because that was the politically correct way to say something. And that's where it all kind of started. That was the spark, right, that lit the fire that became wokeism. Today, I don't know how else to put this, but like these guys, in my opinion, nailed the left wing to a T. I like when I read this article, I could associate something from the left with everything they were talking about. And so to me, those guys nailed it. But now I want to talk about somebody else that's about to get nailed. Oh, Kevin McCarthy. So McCarthy over the weekend makes this deal with Joe Biden to get a debt ceiling bill passed, and he made so many concessions that the Freedom Caucus was pissed. I mean, they were mad. So much so that they held I think it was 2 different press conferences talking about how they opposed this debt ceiling bill and the concessions that were made by the speaker. And so I wanted to jump into this story here that I found from the Daily Wire the other day. It says, band of House Republicans stand against debt ceiling deal. Now, these Republicans, Chip Roy, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Byron Donaldson, these guys, these are the Republicans that we need to be. These are the type of Republicans that need to be put into office, right? If we're going to reshape this government, we're going to take back this government and take back control. It has to be with a Republican Party led by people like that, like Matt Gaetz and Chip Roy and Byron Donaldson, right? Because these guys in the Freedom Caucus, and the Freedom Caucus is growing, mind you. The more and more they do things like this and they make sense and they stand their ground, the more respect they're going to gain from people in all over the country, myself included, right? And so I would say this, any Oklahoma state rep, in Congress that is not part of the Freedom Caucus, get your butt in it right now. Because you represent the reddest state in the country. You better be part of that Freedom Caucus. Because I promise you, there's a vast majority of people in this state that like what these people are doing. I stand by them. Now, I was a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I am slowly starting to lose respect for that woman. She caved on the speaker vote because she got a deal. She got power. She got put on committee. She was guaranteed committees. And so because of that, she was all about voting in Kevin McCarthy and did not stand with the rest of the Freedom Caucus when they decided to not vote for him. Then we have this debt ceiling bill that she voted for. She's come out in defense of Kevin McCarthy almost every step of the way. To me, that just goes to show that Marjorie Taylor Greene is playing politics and doesn't give a damn about true American values, because she would stand behind this and vote no on that damn deal. But she already made her deal with the devil. Excuse me. She made her deal with the devil, and now she has to live with it, which means now she has to vote his way. He's the speaker. If she defects, she loses everything, right? She loses. He can easily just take her off the committee, move her around, not make her as important, and all that. So she doesn't want to lose that. She doesn't want to lose the power she's gained by being on his side. So now she has to vote with him. Whereas these guys stood their ground firm at the speaker vote, which gives them all the power in my mind. Because the more you can pull people to your side, the more you're going to actually control the House. And here's what I want to say. I'm not really going to read this Daily Wire article too much because it's a couple days old and it doesn't really say what these guys are going to do now that the bill has been passed. But I wanted to highlight it because I wanted to highlight the Freedom Caucus and these Republicans who do not they don't want to be doing things the same old way. And that is what McCarthy did here. It's the same old Washington swampy crap. And we're tired of it. These guys, the Freedom Caucus, they know that, right? They realize and can actually feel the true heartbeat of America right now and are trying to convince more Republicans to come to their side. And I hope they do. I hope they do. And like I said, all of you Oklahoma, House reps, if you guys are not officially part of the Freedom Caucus, you need to be. I can't stress that enough. But here's what I want to do. Right? I want to talk about the people who did not vote for the debt ceiling deal, who stood firm and said, no, we're not going to do this. Right? I found a list from USA Today. Here is the 71 GOP lawmakers that opposed the debt limit bill. And of course, you've got some regular names. Dan Bishop, he's been allowed opponent of McCarthy and during the speaker vote. I believe he was even nominated at one point. There you go, Josh Breachin, Oklahoma. I like to see that. Of course, you got, let's see, anybody else that stands out? Byron Donalds, of course, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gozer, right? These are like the guys who started. All right, Kevin Hearn, there we go. Another Oklahoma. I like to see that. But, Paul Gozer, Matt Gaetz, these are some of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus, right? And, all right, Morgan Luttrell, I like to see that too. Let's see, anyone else that stands out? Scott Perry, Chip Roy, right? George Santos. I can't believe that guy. I mean, this just goes that right there, like this little sidebar here, right? But George Santos just goes to show you how broken our system is and how weak we are as a community in this country. That guy flat out lied about who he was and what he and what he where he went to school and all this stuff, and he's still voting on bills. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I believe he's even I don't know if he's under an indictment, but I want to say there's at least an investigation going on into him right now. If not an indictment. I mean, you guys may be able to know more than I do about that. You can let me know in the chat, or leave a comment down below. But I think he's I'm pretty sure he's at least under investigation. Well, let's see here. Like I said, okay, Chip Roy, we mentioned him. All right, so yeah, I touched on some of the bigger names on this list, but 71, okay, that's a decent number. I mean, but hell, 46 Democrats decided not to vote with Joe Biden on this one. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to make them, allies of the Freedom Caucus or anything like that, but it just goes to show that not everybody The Democratic Party is riding with Biden, right? But this list here, for me, it was important because I wanted to see who actually stood their ground and voted against the debt ceiling bill, because they made too many concessions. He was right. Chip Roy and all those guys were right when they had their press conference. They just made too many concessions in that bill. They gave up too much and didn't do enough. Right? Didn't take away enough. I think they were trying to really get rid of those 87,000 IRS agents, and cut that budget down. And they cut it down by like what one point something billion out of an $80 billion budget. Man, that's nothing. We all know that's nothing. But what can we do, right? They passed it. And so now we're going to have to live with it. And it's stupid because they only put caps on it for 2 years. So after 2 years, they're going to have to do all this again. And from what I understand, it's going to be a lame duck session. So that makes it even worse in some regards. I don't know. I think it's time for more people in our government to start standing up and doing the right thing for the right reason, and quit worrying about re-election and posturing and all that bullshit. Right? That's why I think Warren Buffett had a great line. He said he could solve the national debt crisis in one law. And that's, if you don't make like over 3% GDP for the year or whatever, you're not allowed to run for re-election in government, or allowed to work in government anymore. And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And I can paraphrasing, of course, because I kind of butchered that, but it makes sense, right? Like, we should do something like that. We should hold our elected officials accountable more, right? They work for us, for crying out loud. Why the hell are we not doing more to hold them accountable? We have all of this technology in the palm of our hands, right? All of this amazing ways to get our voices out and be heard. And we don't take advantage of it enough, right? We need more people going to school board meetings and sitting in on state house votes and stuff like that, and paying attention to what's going on locally, because in the end, it's your community where you live that matters the most. It's the laws and stuff directly around you that matter more than anything else, more than these federal laws or who's in federal government. But ultimately, it's the ones in federal government who dictate how the direction of the country. And so we need to make sure we have the right people in place to do that, right? And I'm glad to see there were 71 GOP members who are willing to stand firm and say, no, this is a bad deal. I'm not gonna vote for it. That's great. But it should have been 171, right? It should have been all of the Republicans saying, no, I'm sorry, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Speaker, this is a bad deal. And I understand you're trying to make concessions with the president, but this is bad. And you need to go back and be more assertive, more firm, because you had the votes either way. You were guaranteed to have the votes if you would have stood your ground and said, no, this doesn't go, this doesn't go, this doesn't go. I'm not bending on these things. You can have this, but I'm not bending on these. Whatever. We're not taking this out. We're not taking that out. We're not adjusting this. But you didn't do that. Yeah, I've got a tickle in my throat. Well, I kind of blew through those stories, didn't I? But, in the end, the bill passed. McCarthy, for now, is still speaker, but I don't think he's going to be. Right? I think there's going to be somebody who says, this is just, I've had enough. This is horseshit. I want him out. Because it only takes one. That was one of the stipulations that the Freedom Caucus holdouts during the speaker vote wanted, was to make sure that it only took one person to have a vote of no confidence in the speaker and have him removed. Just one. So there's probably 5 or 6 right now that might be willing to do it. I don't know that any of them may have the stones to actually do it. But if they do, what does that mean for the House? Does that mean there's another vote? And what's his name? Jeffries might have a shot at winning? Like, are we willing to roll the dice and take that chance? I don't know. Who else will we nominate? I mean, I like Byron Byron Donaldson, right? Yeah, or Byron Donalds, yeah. From Florida, I like him. I like him a lot. Him, Matt Gaetz, I think we need to keep Matt Gaetz in committees and stuff like that, hammering people with questions. But I wouldn't mind seeing Byron Donalds as Speaker of the House. That'd be a good look for the Republican Party. My opinion. Be a really good look. He's strong, he's intelligent, he's he's opinionated. I like him. I like him. And if it were me, I would say that if you were going to take out McCarthy, then you need to get everybody on board with Byron Donalds. Because that, to me, is the best replacement. And not only that, but you put Byron Donalds as Speaker of the House, there's a good chance he could be Speaker of the House for a decade, if not longer. I firmly believe that. After listening to that guy speak, watching the way he handles himself in the media and all that, yeah, I firmly believe he could easily hold that position for a decade. No doubt. So if it were me and I was, somebody like, say, I don't know, Dan Bishop, or Chip Roy, and I decided, I never wanted McCarthy anyways, let's just get him out. Let's just do it. And let's go and make sure I've got enough votes to get Byron Donalds in as Speaker. I would start picking up the phone and making phone calls to all 71 of these people on the list and then some. And be like, hey, I know you voted with McCarthy on this bill because you this or that, but we're getting rid of him. We're getting rid of him. He's out. I don't know. Scott Perry may do it. Somebody needs to do it, though. Because you put a rhino in charge of the House. Everybody knew it. McCarthy talked a good game, but in the end, what did he do? He bent. He bent to the president instead of standing firm. And those of us who did not want to see McCarthy in as Speaker knew it was going to happen. Just like that, that's why there are those of us out here who, no matter what Donald Trump says, what dumb thing he shoots out on truth, like the thing he said about Kayleigh McEnany, that was retarded. Trump, you're an idiot. Even with that, I would vote for him over DeSantis because DeSantis will do the same thing that McCarthy did. He will bend. He will capitulate. And then he'll say, well, we got to work with the guys on the other side if we want to, no, you don't. Because the other side don't work with you. The other side the Democrats don't come out and go, well, we got to make sure that we work with Republicans on this to make sure we pass this bill. No, hell no. They wait until they got the majority and then they just shove everything down your throat. And Republicans just sit back and, oh, guys, shucks, will you stop it, please? Come on, let's not do that. And it's like, no, come on, you got to play their game. When you have control, take control. Force some bills down their throat. I would love to see 0 Democrats voted on something that passed. It'd be great. Because then it just goes to show you, like, we can do it too. Now, you're the one who set the rules. Like Byron Donalds told Joy Reid, you guys set the rules. We're just playing by them. You kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene off of committees, so we can kick Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell off committees. We didn't set this precedent. You did. We're just playing by your rules, right? Another reason why I think Byron Donalds would be great as a speaker. But again, I can bring that back if you look at, the way the Democrats act, when they are in power. I can bring that back to the Timcast article about narcissistic, psychotic people tend to be on the left. Well, that proves it out, right? The Democratic Party in itself proves that study out. So again, that story correlated to, more things that we're talking about today. So, but in the end, I think people are starting to see through the facade that is American politics and are starting to realize that their voice is more important than the people on TV and the politicians that we put in office. Those politicians are our mouthpieces. We elect them because they are supposed to be there to represent us and speak for us. If they don't do their job, we need to hold them accountable instead of saying, oh, well, what can we do, right? They're in office now. No, we can do a lot. There's still many things we can do with a congressman or a senator who is not serving his community correctly or honestly, right? And I think that we're going to see big changes in 2024, 26, 28. We're going to start seeing a lot more Freedom Caucus type members in the House and Senate. That's my opinion. I mean, some may think I'm wrong, but I believe the country as a whole, the Joe Biden presidency was the biggest slap in the face to the American people that we could have ever gotten. And for those who decided to vote for Joe instead of Trump because you just didn't like Trump, ask yourself this. When you didn't like the guy, how was your life outside of that? If you didn't focus on Trump, how was your life? Were you paying $8 for a carton of eggs? Were you paying double and triple for, your groceries, your gas? I mean, look at it objectively. And more and more Americans are. And I think that's why we're starting to see the shift. I think that's why Donald Trump is leading DeSantis by, 25 to 30 points in the polls right now, because a lot of us remember what that economy was like under Trump. At least we know we're going to, if we elect Trump, at least we know we're going to get a decent economy. some decent foreign policy, a good chance we don't get any new wars, and none of that can be said about DeSantis. I don't know how fiscally responsible DeSantis is. I don't know that he won't bend the knee and try to make a deal with Democrats on this or that, to try to get what he wants. I know Trump won't. He's got nothing to lose. He gets reelected, he's got nothing to lose. I would, if I were Trump, I'd run in there and burn the whole thing down. You're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Let's start holding interviews for new positions and just go. I would have all my kids interviewing 50 freaking people a day until we got the whole establishment replaced. Now, do I think that's going to happen? No. I think Trump's going to fire a lot of key people who have been in key positions for a very long time that nobody knows, right? These bureaucrats who are behind the scenes, who have been directors of this or aides to this congressman or senator, or worked in the White House for this many years, or blah 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 blah, right? I believe a lot of that's going to change if Trump gets elected. So we'll see. But I think the Freedom Caucus making a stand here is starting to show more and more Americans that there are people out there that we can put in the office that will stand up and fight for what we believe in and not kowtow and make backdoor or backroom agreements or deals, to get what they want in a later bill. And that's what this country needs. So in the end, I think McCarthy there's probably, I would say it's a 70%, 65 to 70% chance somebody from the Freedom Caucus tries to oust McCarthy by the end of summer, if not before then. And like I've said, the Timcast article, I've been able to link that to almost everything we've discussed today, except Tom Brady. And the one thing I can tell you is I don't think Tom Brady's going to sell his position in the Raiders to play for the Raiders. Not at 46. I think it's going to be nice to collect a paycheck from sitting up in the box watching the game than it is being on the field taking those hits. So 2-1 odds, though. Whew, that's hard to pass up. But I'm going to leave it there. If you guys enjoyed the stream, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the channel, the topics, my live streaming, all of that. I love to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. I need all the subscribers I can get. You guys are really what help drive the channel, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I'll catch you later. Peace.